Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. A very warm welcome to this TM Forum and Couchbase webinar, Building a Real-Time Personalized Video Experience for the 5G Era. My name is Mark Newman and I'm Chief Analyst at the TM Forum. So over the next hour, Perry Krug. Perry is an architect within the Office of the CTO at Couchbase. Perry and myself will be talking about some of the strategies, some of the prerequisites for building out video strategies for telecoms operators. I will be giving a 10-minute intro, and then I'll be leaving Perry to talk through some of the different ways in which Couchbase sees the video business evolving from a telco perspective. We will be sending out an email within 24 hours of the webinar, which will give you a recording of the webinar itself and access to the slides. We have a number of poll questions that we'll be asking you during the next 50 or so minutes, and Perry and I will be talking about those as and when the answers come in. You are very, very welcome to ask any questions that occur to you while Perry and I are speaking. You can use the Q&A tab on your console. You can add a question at any time over the next hour, and we'll pick up those questions at the end of the session. Just one final point before I start. For those of you who are not too familiar with some of Couchbase's capabilities, then there are a number of accesses to a number of resource materials from Couchbase that you might like to refer to during or after the presentation. So, there's two nice pictures of Perry and myself. I just ask you to take note of our email addresses. If you'd like to follow up with Perry or myself, there you have our email addresses, so please make a note of them now. So I'm going to start this discussion looking in a broad context of the telecoms operator business today. And the reality is that telecoms operators are video distribution platforms. These numbers are taken from a forecasting tool from Cisco. It's called Cisco VNI. And Cisco VNI tracks and forecasts the growth of traffic by application type across both fixed and mobile networks, which is the multicolored graphic in the back, and looking purely at mobile networks, which is the graphic at the front. And what is in common when I look across both of those forecasts is that video is already the dominant traffic type on telecoms networks. If we look across all IP traffic on fixed and mobile networks, video accounting for something around 60% today, rising to 71% by 2022. On the mobile side, video are building to, I'd say, a similar share of the market, so over 70% by 2022. So many operators are proactive in their strategies in terms of seeking to monetize that video by taking some sort of role in the supply of video services. Others, as they are today, are purely passive carriers of that traffic. And the whole point of this webinar is to say that as we're looking towards this fast broadband future, we believe that video will become more critical to the future success of either fixed or mobile operators. So if we look at operators that have what I call proactive video strategies today, these are just a few examples. There's operators across the world who have strong TV video strategies. So the examples I've chosen, Telefonica, BT, AT&T, Telstra, what do they have in common? What they have in common is that they are incumbent operators who are powerful across fixed and mobile networks. Many telecoms operators started their video strategy with DSL and with IPTV services. More recently, they've moved towards embracing OTT services. Many of the strategies today combine elements of of IPTV and OTT. So, I mean, it's interesting just to look at the different strategies here. So Telefonica, I guess when you look at Telefonica in Spain and Latin American markets, classic IPTV, investing heavily in content production. Between 10 and 20% of Telefonica's revenues globally now come from TV services. So it's becoming a real core service for Telefonica. BT slightly different. So BT moved into the TV business only 10 years or so ago. And I think in BT's case, when we think about the value that video is offering BT, I think, yes, you can look at incremental revenues, but more than anything, the video strategy there is to support the retail broadband business. So BT has been pretty successful as a provider of particular sports services in the UK, and I think, as I say, measuring success, the KPI should be looking at retail broadband. A number of operators have gone via the acquisition route. So AT&T has entered into the TV market in a big way via its acquisition of DirecTV, so seeking to bundle AT&T broadband and DirecTV services. Then we have Telstra in Australia. Telstra is now focused on an OTT TV platform. Telstra's quite interesting. It actually owns a stake in Foxtel, which is one of the large pay TV providers there. But in addition to that stake in Foxtel, it's offering movies via Netflix, Apple services via this OTT TV set-top box. So I think it's interesting to start thinking about video and telco from a mobile perspective. I think everyone's going to agree that until 4G came along, video wasn't really a particularly viable strategy over mobile networks. That clearly changed with LTE. When operators launched LTE, a number of them used video as the hook to get people to take up LTE services. Some of them attempted to monetize that in the short term by sort of soft bundling or hard bundling services. I think that monetization is a very big and important question looking ahead towards 5G. We have seen in the last couple of months 5G services launch, so mobile broadband 5G services launch in the US, South Korea, UK, Spain, Finland, UAE, a couple of others. So we're seeing those early 5G launches. And our observation is that video is already playing a fairly prominent part in those 5G launches. So I think what's interesting is seeing precisely how 5G is being positioned in the context of video. So LTE certainly unlocked the potential of video. I think when we look to 5G, operators are looking at what specific benefits can they offer over LTE in a 5G context, and there might be around offering 4K, 8K video. It might be around offering VR, AR services. These bullet points here come from South Korea. The South Korean operators are particularly advanced when it comes to new services generally. And I think seeing 20% of 5G traffic now features AR and VR functions. Clearly, it's very early days for 5G, but nevertheless, that is some sort of an indicator. SK Telecom has also launched a sponsorship deal with a big esports provider. So I think it's interesting looking particularly at the Asian market. I think from a content entertainment perspective, I think 5G is going to be quite a big driver of services here. And then we look at traffic levels around 5G, and clearly traffic levels are going to be significantly higher over 5G than over 4G on a per customer basis. I think operators will seek to drive that with their 5G bundling strategies. So just sticking on the theme of these 5G launches, this is a few screenshots from operators doing different things. So this is particularly topical. Those of you who are music followers, Glastonbury takes place this weekend in the burning sunshine, I believe. And this is a UK operator, EE, which is talking about the first 5G connected festival. Not entirely sure what they mean by that, but it's good branding. Vodafone talking about holographic calls for using video. And this is Warner Media, and this is this is essentially an operator, in this case AT&T, looking at how it can use its 5G, use its R&D process and embed 5G within the R&D process. So I think whatever way you look at it, video is going sort of front and center in 5G operators' launch strategies, and that's regardless of whether they are a triple or quad play operator or whether they're a pure play mobile operator. So we have the first question for you, and so if you have your fingers ready to give your answer. So our question to you is quite a simple multiple choice, just asking to choose one answer. When it comes to 5G and video, which of the following approaches do you believe will be the most effective for operators? Will it be 1, it will allow operators to offer unlimited data plans without worrying about capacity issues? Will it be 2, operators will launch dedicated 5G mobile services, working with different content providers with a view to building revenue streams? Or thirdly, will it be used to allow operators to bring new AR, VR applications to market? So there's no right, there's no wrong answer. We're just interested to capture your sentiment. So we'll give you 15, 20 seconds to give an answer here. So Perry, you and I were talking before the webinar about the perils of giving our own thoughts about which answer will be most popular before we start. So I'm not going to lead you to an answer, but it's going to be interesting. So without saying, Perry, any thoughts as to which one's going to come out on top?
Well, I think it's interesting. Looking at the evolution of 3G to 4G to 5G. Is 5G just making things faster, or is it changing the game? Is it enabling operators to do something they couldn't do before? And I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, so let's take a look. So here we have, that's interesting. So operators will launch dedicated 5G mobile video services. So that's really interesting. I guess maybe that partly depends on whether you're a mobile broadband or a sort of fixed wireless 5G operator. But I do think, given that 5G will be such a capable bearer of video services, that some operators will be tempted to start offering pure mobile video services, maybe as an add-on, maybe as a €5 $5 skinny bundle, as people call it. So that's interesting. Any thoughts there at all? Anything surprising there, Perry?
No, I think it's very interesting. I think looking at the third option, it's not a 0% relevance, but I do think AR and VR are maybe a little bit new still, and so for a mobile operator for a telco operator to be focusing on that is probably a sign that it's not quite ready for mainstream yet. But equally, they're not. The only focus is not on speed and capacity. So I think that resonates with how the operators would certainly like 5G to be presented.
I think the other interesting angle here is that when it comes to things like AR and VR or 4K, 8K video, that even if the operators don't themselves sort of build capabilities in those areas, the fact that 5G has that capability might mean that the whole world of apps, we might well see new apps emerging that make use of those capabilities. So in many ways, it's kind of out of the operator's control, I think, in terms of the extent to which 5G becomes the bearer for those technologies.
Sure.
Okay. So as we think about operators and moving into the video space, operators either in the video space, moving into the video space, it's one thing to have an aspiration to produce your own content, to work with third parties to bundle their content. But the challenge that the existing pay TV companies have, some of them being telco companies, some might be cable or satellite companies have, is that some of the functionalities being offered by the OTT companies are really very, very powerful. And you can't just look at your network capability or just at your content strategy. You need to be able to offer certain functionalities and capabilities. And without those functionalities and capabilities, it's going to be pretty difficult for you to compete, because companies like Netflix create a certain level of expectation, so a certain threshold in terms of people expecting to get certain capabilities. So it might be around personalization, it might be around richness of content, it might be around multi-device capabilities, and it might be around the simple intuitive nature service. And I think what I find interesting when we look broadly at digital OTT services versus services, it's the fact that these services are so simple to use. In many ways, the operator becomes invisible because they're so intuitive. And that has to be the aspiration, indeed a requirement, I would say, for telcos in the video space. Moving on to my my last slide here. So partnership is clearly driving a lot of what telcos are doing in the video space. So this is taken from Ovum, which is an independent research firm, and they've looked at different types of partnership strategies that different operators have in different. So they divide it into online and mobile portal partners. They divide it into the bundling of services, so the soft bundling of services, and then the last category, the full integration of services into an application on your TV or your mobile. And I think we can see that partnerships sit front and center of what operators are doing, not about to change. So I think when you think about about your strategy, how you integrate, how you make those third-party services available, how you those partners, is absolutely crucial to your success. So we have a second poll question. And this is relating directly to OTT service providers. And from a partnership perspective, what's the main benefit for partnering with OTT service providers? 1, delivering an improved customer experience. 2, differentiation from competing operators. 3, generating incremental revenues. Or 4, leveraging 5G. I'm particularly interested to see the answers to this one. Again, I'm going to stick my neck out, and I'm probably going to be completely wrong. I'm just going to give you a few more seconds so my view doesn't influence your view. But I think, Perry, that we'll see the first one come out on top. What do you reckon?
I'd like to hope that the first one comes out on top. But I think the third one, even if the third one isn't the main benefit, it should be everybody's goal. So if you see all of these other options in service of your revenue, then that is certainly the main benefit. But yes, in customer experience is what we know what drives that.
So
perfect.
So Perry, I wasn't wrong, but I wasn't right either. So it's what you were saying. So it's the third, which is interesting, and so that's kind of what we hope we'd get. Is that fair?
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. It's interesting that differentiation from competing operators isn't a little higher. I think that's quite an interesting one. I do think that when we think about how operators will compete in the future, I think content strategy has been a differentiator around bundling. So maybe I'm a little bit surprised that wasn't higher, but can't really argue those numbers.
Well, I think
so thank you, audience.
I think you'd say this is the idea of a common enemy, right? If we step outside of telco and look at retail, individual supermarket chains don't compete with each other anymore. They're all competing against Amazon. So individual telco operators don't need to compete with each other as much as they do against Netflix and others.
Yeah. So thank you, audience, for your participation. We'll have one more to come. I'm now going to hand over to Perry. So Perry, over to you. I'll let you pick up and move on.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you all for being on the line. For those of you who have joined maybe halfway through the session, this is being recorded, and so will be sent out to you for your future viewing. My name is Perry Krug. I am an architect in the office of the CTO at Couchbase. Couchbase is a NoSQL database company, and we actually have, and you'll see, quite a bit of experience in the telco industry. So I thank Mark and the TM Forum for giving us an opportunity to present to you today. Doing a little bit of scene setting, the environment that we find ourselves in, the world that we find ourselves in, you can categorize and use many buzzwords around digital transformation, revolution, all these different buzzwords, but ultimately the shift that we as a horizontal database technology have observed across all industries that we work with, telco being no exception, is the change in customer interaction and the change in customer expectations. No longer in your world are customers accepting to buy a plan, use their phone to make a few calls, pay a monthly bill at the end, and that is it. They are expecting more and more from you, and they're expecting that to be seamless and transparent. They're expecting these services to be personalized and available. They're expecting them to be data rich. They're expecting them to be fast and available anytime, anywhere. This is the world that we find ourselves in. I hope all of you out there will agree. And this extends all the way from our experience with our bank, through our experience with our respective governments, through our experience with our retailers, through our experiences with our employers, and what services our employers are giving us in pursuit of our own functions in our roles, and then certainly for this conversation, what are our experiences working with our mobile phone and internet operators. And really, we are being driven by, all of these experiences are being driven by a customer expectation. We as consumers, each individual one of us, myself very much included, have been trained over the years by Facebook and Google and Amazon and Uber and Netflix. We've been trained to expect a certain experience, and we are now turning around and demanding that experience from every service that we interact with, every digital, but also every physical service that we interact with, and so that's where we find ourselves today. We heard Mark talking about the rollout of 5G, the offering of video services, the partnering with and directly competing with the OTTs of your world. It's not enough to just make the video faster. Right? It's not enough to just deliver the bits and the bytes of a video to your customer, because your customer won't come to you for that. You must be providing an exceptional experience around that video delivery. Yes, the video must be fast and jitter-free, but if the user can't find the video that they want to watch, if the user can't comment on and get recommendations, if the user can't share that with their friends, if the user can't have a profile with their favorites and their preferences saved, all of these interactions go around and surround the actual delivery of video, and so that's the intersection of what Couchbase has to offer with what you and everyone else is trying to provide. Taking a slightly more technical step, we find ourselves, and I guarantee that the vast majority of you out there find yourselves very well described by this statement. Unless you are a completely digitally native application stack that started in the last 5 years, you are going to have some legacy application, and those legacy applications are being forced into those expectations applications that we were talking about earlier. These applications must run in distributed environments. We're not talking just about a distributed architecture of cloud, but we're talking about geographically distributed to service users around the world. Those users are growing. The adoption of mobile, the adoption of internet is only growing and accelerating around the world. And the expectation of the users are that their experience will be sub-millisecond, that it will be available 99.5679 of the time. And the result is that in order to bring data through these applications, bring the data through these experiences to the consumer, most of our organizations find themselves having multiple systems of record, right? You may have your one or more CRM systems, one or more billing systems, one or more product catalogs. Those are then aggregated into sources of truth where you are able to provide a different aggregated view of the data, maybe for a different access pattern, maybe to make a faster, more scalable, more replicated exposure and presentation of the data. And then those, in many cases, are wrapped in multiple layers of caches just for the performance of either the interactive or read traffic on them. And it's the coordination of data flowing through bidirectionally into and out of all of these layers that can make for a very complicated stack, but it is a reality of the world we find ourselves in. And when looking at how to evolve these applications to meet the requirements that we laid out before, you and your companies, your organizations, your colleagues are being asked to identify and choose databases to fit into one or more layers of this, either a new or an augmented system of record, either a new or replacing system of source of truth, or as a new or consolidated caching layer. And we at Couchbase, and certainly resonating across the industry, identify a few key requirements when choosing your next generation database to meet the needs of these applications and your consumer demands. Cloud is no longer a nice to have. Cloud is no longer a maybe. Whether it be public or private, being natively designed for the cloud is a must-have, is a critical part of any system that you're choosing. And no other no group other than this would understand better the need to seamlessly integrate with a mobile. With your mobile applications, with your mobile devices. We at Couchbase believe it's not just enough to allow mobile applications to access data, but that you truly need a distributed and synchronized data management experience all the way from the cloud to the edge. Back in years before, it was enough to do your business intelligence on weekly or monthly cycles where you would move data over to a data warehouse or an offline analytics system. You would crunch some of that data. You would use that to inform your next product offering, and off you would go. But today, there's a requirement to dramatically reduce the time to insight from when a user is actually interacting with your system, making a change or choosing an option that you have provided to them, and use that immediately in to impact and augment their experience. So your operational database now needs to be able to support that sort of real-time analytics and reduce the time to insight. If we look at what differentiates Netflix, what differentiates Hulu, what differentiates YouTube, one of the key abilities that they have is to change. They have the ability to roll out new features, to grow their adoption, to scale on demand, both out and in. And it's that change that they have built into that is now being required of everyone to compete with them. So, we can talk about 5G being a multi-year-long infrastructure augmentation, infrastructure evolution. But when you look at all the services on top of that, when you look at all of the applications and services that you are looking to provide around delivering video, around delivering AR and VR applications, it's the need to change and respond to changes as fast as possible, and your database needs to be able to support that. The requirements of availability have never been stronger. There is no longer any acceptance of an outage window. You cannot take your system offline on a Sunday evening in order to perform some maintenance or upgrade. It's just not acceptable. I think mobile operators and telco operators have probably lived in this world for a long time at an infrastructure level, but now that availability expectation extends all the way from your website portal to your video streaming, to your billing and account management. All layers of your customer experience is expected to be available. And finally, as we enter into a more personalized and a more data-rich world, security has never been more paramount to protect the private data, the personal data of our users, as well as the security of our own and our organization's systems and the data that we're storing. And so security is not a nice to have. It's not a add-on afterwards. It needs to be built into the infrastructure from the very beginning. So entering this world, we have the Couchbase data platform, and I'm not going to go into too much depth about the technical capabilities thereof, but it is a database designed with those requirements in mind from the very beginning. It was designed to be a clustered and replicated and geographically distributed, mobile synchronized database with availability and performance and replication all built in, along with full stack security and a variety of different access patterns. So as Mark said, if you'd like to learn more about the technical details of what Couchbase has to provide, that can be an hour-long webinar in and of itself. So I encourage you to go into our documentation, to go onto Couchbase.com, to go through some of those references that you have at your fingertips on this webinar and learn more about it. We're going to talk more about how Couchbase is used in the telco industry in a moment. One other perspective on the architecture of what Couchbase provides. We are on the far right-hand side is a component called Couchbase Server, and this is the data center class or cloud region class distributed database that provides read and write access, SQL-like querying, full-text search, analytics, all in a centralized cloud or database or data center database. Jumping over to the far left-hand side is a component called Couchbase Lite, and this is an embedded database. You can think of very much like SQLite, but built for JSON, built for a flexible data model. And this is designed to run out on mobile devices, out on embedded systems. Maybe they are laptops or desktops or set-top boxes inside of an application that needs to have access to and local access to data. It is a fully functional database with persistence and encryption, with querying and full text and triggering capabilities, and can, and in many cases does run as a standalone part of an application. I bet that many of you out there, if you looked at your iPhone or Android devices today, would actually find a number of applications that are using Couchbase Lite under the hood. The main value that we bring to this, however, is the middle piece, the Couchbase Sync Gateway that connects the embedded database on the left with the centralized database on the right, and gives you as the organization, you as the application developer, a rich set of tools to control the data routing, access patterns, authentication, and security, so that either pushing data from a central server out to individual mobile devices and or synchronizing data back from those mobile devices to a centralized database. We provide a standard, robust infrastructure for data transport and data management, and you build your applications on top of those, whether they be accessing the local data out at the edge with Couchbase Lite and or a web-based application leveraging the data in Couchbase Server. Okay, moving through the technical part of the conversation, just to provide a little bit of perspective about how Couchbase fits in this new digital world. We talk very much about the Couchbase data platform underneath or at the bottom of a stack, and being used to build and service applications in a variety of industries. Paramount for today is the telecom and telco operators, but we are actually able to see very similar requirements, very similar applications, very similar demands being placed across all industries today, whether that be retail and travel, healthcare, financial services, the public sector with government, streaming media, and entertainment. And what is it that connects these two? What is it that the Couchbase data platform is providing to these industries? This is the area of, in the world of building systems of engagement. And a very apt quote here to describe what a system of engagement is, but it is the technology adopted by an organization to help facilitate and orchestrate the customer journey via a more personalized, seamless interactions across the various touch points. So we can talk about omni-channel here. We can talk about customer experience. We talk about personalized and seamless. And this may be this is not only applications that you are building, but it's your integration with your partners and the OTTs and the other players in the ecosystem. How does your end user have a seamless and personalized experience across all of those? Now, these systems of engagement span mobile, web, and IoT applications. There are some that are mobile only. There are some that are IoT only. But the best of them provide a seamless experience across all three. So that if I am interacting with my mobile phone operator on my device, and I am browsing your product catalog, or I'm browsing my video recommendations, it should be the same experience as I have if I'm consuming that video on my web browser. It should be the same experience as if I'm browsing or accessing that video from my connected home devices, be it my TV or Alexa, just as an example. Underpinning this, you are and everybody is building applications around customer data. Customer 360 is bringing data from all of your different user touch points into a single place, so that I, as the consumer, have a single view of my profile and my interaction, but then you, as an organization internally, have a single view of what your customers are doing and how their experience is evolving. And then a couple different categories of application, whether that be around managing your catalog and inventory, whether that be developing applications to give to your employees out in the field, talking about infrastructure and asset management applications, whether that be in-store, in retail store applications. And how are you managing and gathering data from your various IoT devices, whether those be the set-top boxes that you're providing to your customers, or perhaps it's the cell towers that you are gathering data from. All of these applications are used in concert to serve the system of engagement, to serve the customer experience. And then, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, you are building these applications and choosing a database to provide either caching and offload functionality to make your existing legacy systems faster, be they mainframes or relational databases. You might be aggregating data together from multiple sources to provide a single catalog or a single customer record. Or you may be building new applications that you have the luxury of choosing a new system of record that is better suited to the needs you have on it. And this is where we see Couchbase being used across all industries, but specifically in telco, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Before we do, to make sure you're all still awake and not sleeping on us, we have our final poll question of the webinar. I wanted to get a sense from our audience as you look beyond the speed benefits of 5G, as you look beyond the transfer of bits and bytes of video, what are the other ancillary or related applications and capabilities that you are looking to offer your customers as part of your video strategy? And I don't know, Mark, it's your turn now to throw out posit an answer to this.
So I'm putting myself in the position of a member of our audience here, and this is a trickier one, I think, than previous questions. So a number of different benefits. I guess some of these benefits are benefits to the customer, and some of them are benefits that equally apply to the operator. So it'd be very interesting to see how this comes out. We've asked you, so you're allowed to choose two. So you can choose two capabilities. So I'm certainly not going to be so foolish as to guess which way this is going to come out. Do you want to be foolish,
yeah,
Perry?
I think it's going to be
I'll give you the chance.
Nope. I'm going to say all of the above because that's my world.
So we'll give you another 10 seconds. Yeah. If in doubt, put down what your first instinct is. Okay, let's take a look.
All right, let's take a look here.
So, okay. So, well, multi-screen. So you can ignore the percentage numbers because people put in two answers. So ignore the percentages.
Yeah,
but in terms of the most votes, it's multi-screen functionality in search and recommendation. Any of the sort of ones that you thought should have scored or might have scored higher? Would you say there, Perry?
I would have thought that social applications was a bigger would score a little bit higher, given the prevalence of those with the technologies that are in competition for this. I understand the multi-screen functionality. Obviously, the search and recommendation goes without saying. I think I'm surprised offline support wasn't a little bit bigger, but I guess at the same time, if we're talking about 5G increasing connectivity, why would we be focusing on providing cases where it's not connected?
Yeah, that's true.
Let's move on, and we'll get some time for discussion at the end.
Back to you, Perry.
Yeah, thank you. And just to talk, to maybe focus the discussion on what are telco companies using Couchbase for, and what kind of applications are they choosing to roll out. We at Couchbase very much consider telco and streaming media in very similar conversations because of the kinds of applications that both are trying to provide. And I think, Mark, you alluded to that earlier, that as telco looks to partner with and compete with OTTs, they're going to be entering into the world of similar applications. And this is a broad set of different applications across all of those different categories we were talking about before. So some of this is about bringing customer data together. Some of this is about exposing a content library or product catalog. Some of this is about managing the physical assets of an infrastructure, and some of this is about managing the data and the assets of IoT devices. And then if we look at some more specific examples, this is a selection of customers that are using Couchbase, and I think one of the interesting things is not all of these are telco providers, but they are all applications that a telco provider might want to either build themselves and or partner with or interact with. And if we look at Sky and BT and DirecTV, I think those are good examples of companies that blur the lines between a telco operator and an OTT or a content provider. And Sky certainly a key Couchbase customer, providing a lot of their user profile and product catalog management services to their customers. And then, we throw in Viber. We could equally throw in Hulu and others as over-the-top applications that are doing chat and video streaming and things that the telco providers are looking to provide as well. And then there's quite a significant presence in the back end from Amdocs and G&D and Cisco that are providing some of those OSS applications that are then in turn used by many other telcos around the world to meet their to provide an experience to their customers. Almost finally, second to last, just a quick view at a sample reference architecture that we see being rolled out at many of our telco and streaming media customers. You see a representation here. If you look in the middle in red of the core Couchbase platform, the Couchbase server, bringing in data from a variety of external data sources, whether those be your mainframes or CRMs, through an integration layer into the platform, building microservices on top of that to then serve web or third-party applications. But then also synchronizing all the way out to the edge onto a mobile phone or a set-top box, the content, the catalog, gathering telemetry from those devices, and synchronizing that back into the main platform, and in many cases then serving that on again to the data lake and the order fulfillment systems that are sitting in the wider ecosystem. Okay, with just the right amount of time to wrap up, when we started this discussion all about what does 5G mean and how is video going to be brought out by the telcos and operators, and really the point that I believe strongly in is, yes, 5G allows you to transfer more data. It allows you to do that faster, but faster is not enough. The customer experience, your customer experience, is the most important part of differentiating you as a brand, of eventually driving more growth and revenue. You are under increased pressure from the OTTs, and as we said, even less so from your more direct neighboring operators, and you're looking to get a better and better ROI on the infrastructure investment that you are putting into 5G and other infrastructure improvements. And so, how do you get that return on your investment? You must deliver more and better services to your customers, and you must do them at a reduced cost. And so leveraging technologies like Couchbase is exactly how you and many of your peers are doing so. Mark, any closing thoughts that you'd like to throw out there?
No, I think maybe it's a good time. We have about 10 minutes left, so we can. If you have any questions, then please use the Q&A box, and we'll pick them up. So let me just. Was there anything you wanted to add here, Perry, in terms of or did you? I think you did a pretty good job of that, going through that.
Thank you.
So
I think I've said my piece, so we've got some questions coming in.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just pick up one of these questions. So let me find. Okay. Let me just pick. It's hard to pick the nice. Okay. This is something which is an interesting question in terms of how operators want to be treated by their customers. You know, is it in terms of building that sort of a personalized experience? Do you get the sense from operators that they have a clear direction of travel in order to, in the sense that they're confident that their customers want to engage with them? Have you seen anybody do that well?
So I think it's a good question, and if we step back to where we are now, it's unfortunate that some operators have been relegated to the top right corner of your phone with just a little tiny icon up there, and the only time that you think about them is when things are going wrong. But in order to break out of that commodity, it's important and necessary for operators to have engagement with their customers. Now, I think the question is, what does that engagement look like? And do customers want to be bombarded with inappropriate or irrelevant marketing material?
Yeah.
Probably not, right? But do customers want do customers want a seamless way of accessing their account and billing, of chatting with a representative on an online basis? Absolutely. And so it's providing those seamless services that service providers can endear themselves to customers and improve their brand image.
And I guess the attraction of a content strategy is that content is a differentiator. So in many ways, using content, you can use content at the forefront of your strategy for communicating with people. And I guess what I was kind of thinking about there was, you probably don't want to be contacted by your bank. You don't want a bank to be proactive in terms of saying, hey, we've got a great new mortgage offer for you. You just don't want that. But you might be interested in your video provider telling you about a series that they know that you enjoyed. So I think video and personalized experiences go very, very well together.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a question here. It's quite a general question, we'll take it anyway. What are you hearing from operators on their preferred strategy for 5G? Presumably that's quite a broad question. So, maybe I can just take that first, Perry. My thoughts on that are that essentially what we've seen so far is it's an extension of their 4G strategies. It's very, very early days. 5G is looking like 4G plus in terms of pricing, positioning, in terms of hard bundles, soft bundles of new services. I haven't seen anything particularly groundbreaking yet, and I think that's probably because a lot of that groundbreaking capability requires changes to some of the IT and the platforms and the billing and the charging and anything that sits within the core network. And those changes haven't really been made yet. 5G today essentially is new radio on an old core. Anything that you particularly want to add to that, Perry?
No, I think that's true in many cases, but I think it's also true that in order for an operator to differentiate themselves, they need to find something more than 5G being just faster. And if 5G is just a way to extract $12 more a month for a short period of time, that's not going to be a long-term strategy for an operator to differentiate themselves and continue growing their incremental revenue. But I think what you said earlier in the beginning of the presentation with some of the examples of delivering AR and VR over 5G, of delivering better services, of allowing customers to have a more intimate experience with their provider. That's how you're going to differentiate yourselves.
And Perry, it's interesting seeing your customer list there, and you sell both to you sell to traditional. You support traditional pay TV companies. You support some more digital companies. You support telcos. So when it comes to looking at some of those core capabilities that you are able to offer through your solutions and services, do you see any difference in the approaches being taken by those different types of customers that you have?
I think one of the biggest differences that we see is the balance between existing and legacy applications versus kind of net new greenfield applications, and certainly customers like Viber and others have the luxury of not having years and years of legacy data and applications that they need to either migrate or wrap around or integrate with, and so the challenges and the requirements are slightly different. Equally, many operators are regionally focused. Certainly, Verizon is a wide, America-wide company, but if we look at Telefonica's and Telecom Italia's and Proximus's, who really focus on their local market, there's a different need for localization, a different need for cultural relevance more than the highest end scale and performance requirements. And so for us as a database, it gives us a very interesting cross-section of different requirements, all the way from data flexibility all the way to high throughput and low latency that we can then bring to bear for the particular requirements of different operators, whether they be the behemoths or the very important regional players as well.
Yeah. And just one other question while I have you, Perry, which is we touched on personalization before, and do you see personalization as being a sort of a prerequisite for telcos generally? And we all talk about the value of data being personalization. Does every telco you speak to have that same view in terms of how important it is, or not necessarily?
I think it's safe to say yes. I mean, every telco, every OTT, every bank, every retail operator, every organization we talk to is trying to build a exceptional customer experience, and personalization is, if not the core of that, is paramount to making those experiences sticky with your customers, making your customers want to come back for more, and then the performance or the availability is allowing them to do so. Right? They can't come back if your system is not available. But just having fast and available is not enough to make someone want to come back, and that's what personalization does for you.
Okay, so I think we're just creeping up to the hour. So thank you very much, Perry. I hope everyone found that very interesting. If you have any questions for Perry, please follow up with him. It's perry.krug@couchbase.com. Is that right, Perry?
Yes.
And as I say, take a look at some of the materials that they're on the console, and the slides and recording will be with you in the next 24 hours. And thank you very much for your time, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you all very much.